the work I've been doing is been getting those parts to work together. And it is doable. You think it's like this kind of mystical magic. No, it's just connecting with yourself and understanding who you are and what you have going on and being honest.
Welcome to the Bounce Back Generation podcast. Today we're talking about our nervous system. Our guest, Dr. Winston Kennedy, is going to explain how the brain and body reacts, especially under threatening or stressful situations, and then how to calm it down so we can feel better. There are not enough mental health professionals for all of us. If we are going to get healthy, we must heal as a community and help each other. Bounce Back Generation creates and shares tools for young people that build emotional resilience. We all have a role to play in constructing good mental health environments where we can learn about ourselves, help one another, and heal the planet. Our guest, Dr. Kennedy, is an assistant professor at Northeastern University. He holds a doctorate in physical therapy, a master's degree in public health, and a PhD in kinesiology with a concentration in adaptive physical activity. Dr. Kennedy conducts research that supports the health and well-being of people with disabilities, and he is currently investigating how physical activity interventions accommodate youth with psychiatric and intellectual developmental disabilities. Dr. Kennedy is also interested in training healthcare professionals to work with and better support people with disabilities. How does our brain and body connect and how they kind of play off each other? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. So it all starts from the time you're small. Your body is learning how to operate and how to regulate itself. And a big piece of that comes from your parents, right? Even from young, you're learning how to connect with people, how to feel and think about the outside world. There are a lot of instances where your parents aren't aware of that. So they don't do the things that could help you safely regulate your nervous system. So as you get older, these habits start to form themselves, right? So if you're in a home where there's a lot of arguing and yelling and screaming, that tension part of you, because that's what you're used to. Say if maybe like you were a child who used to physical abuse, again, a lot of anger will manifest. If you're in an anger situation, it starts to become a disposition of yours because you internalize that, your body learned from that. That became your normal, right? As you get older, at every stage, there are opportunities to take a step back and address it. Unfortunately, the younger you are, it's harder to do these things. If you're under 18 and you're living with your parents and say they don't know what depression and anxiety is, or they think, for example, he's a boy, he likes to run around and hit and punch things. That's normal. Certain things like that. So again, these things become habits. As you get older, you can lean on these like instincts to interact with people. It can lead you to a place where you can't sustain the type of life that you want, because you know when you're walking around with this increased stress and anger and sadness, the physiological response, you have the inflammatory responses in your body that are going off because your body senses like it's in a stressful situation all the time, even when you're removed from it, because that's the state you grew up in. And we're seeing this influx of like people starting to acknowledge like we carry these childhood traumas with us, right? And that's where that comes from. You know?
So I'm always trying to think of a way to visualize what that looks like. And I always think of it like from childhood, you could learn how to turn your body up to, let's say you got 0 to 10 and you got your body set at all the time. So anytime something happens, you're going between 6 and 8 maybe, and you're up there all the time. Yeah. And so the process is to try to recognize that high level can be brought down. So how do you do it?
I would say exercise, physical activity, also connecting with people, you know what I'm saying? Letting them know, if things are really hectic or if I'm feeling real charged up, I have a couple of people I can hit up and be like, yo, XYZ, ABC. Kind of like getting help reorienting what's going on with you and how to address that. Meditation, I do it a lot by telling myself to stay present. One of the things that I can do is just, I end up thinking about 5 years in the future about where I need to be and what's going on. Then all of a sudden I'm just, then I'm like, wait. And so currently I live in Boston, Massachusetts. I'm in Boston doing this. I'm here right now. Everything's cool. There's nothing going on. And I'm like, yeah, I'm not worried about it.
Right at this moment, everything is just fine.
Everything's cool.
It's okay.
But it's like, I think my experience growing up, it was either nothing or everything. It was, what I'm saying, it's either I'm by myself or it's hectic.
Right.
And I personally know I can be zero super chill and all of a sudden it's like,
I grew up in that same thing. The household was always on some level between 5 and 8. And you just learned how to do that. And you were always like ready to go because you never knew what was coming and you had to be on it. One thing that is really hard for people to understand, because it sounds like self-help woo-woo stuff, like, well, if you just think positive, like The Secret and all that kind of stuff, like just think positively and believe that you already have it and all of that stuff. But there's definitely something that is, and we always try to put things back into science perspective. And you could talk to this. What actually happens in your brain when you start to just try to get yourself into a positive thinking state?
So I'm a licensed physical therapist, right? And one thing I deal with is the elderly and falls. One of the biggest predictors of an elderly person falling is fear of falling. If you're overly thinking positively, it doesn't guarantee that you'll get a positive outcome. If you have a positive outlook and you prepare in that manner, the likelihood of getting a positive outcome increases. Right. Kind of like inversely, if you're thinking negatively about a situation, oh, it's a waste of time. Why I got to do this? I don't like doing this. It's gonna be harder to complete, and you're more than likely gonna have a negative outcome. And these things take balance. It's not a one for all, right? Just because you're thinking positively doesn't mean all the positive things are gonna happen for you. Just because you're thinking negatively, all the things are gonna happen for you. Even from a neurological standpoint, right? When you're in that negative state, you got increased stress, right? So you're increasing your cortisol levels, right? And then just behaviorally, you're not setting yourself up for success. It's one thing my coach used to say. If you're going to go make a tackle, if you're thinking you're going to miss the tackle, you're going to miss it. It happens to me all the time. But if my intent is to complete something and I'm working towards that and I'm doing that, again, the likelihood of it is going to happen.
I can imagine that if I'm in a situation, let's say I'm playing football and I decide I'm going to tackle that guy and I have a negative, I'm going to tackle him, but he's going to tackle me back. He's going to slam me on the ground. It's going to hurt really badly. I'm probably going to be a little bit more, my body's going to tense up and I'm going to be like, and I might be pissed out before I can even get there because they say.
Exactly. You ever heard of being in the zone?
Yes.
Yeah. So basically the concept of that, when you're executive functioning, like you're thinking and planning, you're doing less of that and you're reactive. So you're relying more on those kind of primitive senses to complete an action. And you get towards that, again, self-efficacy. So how you believe what you can do, practice, support, people uplifting you. Yeah, you can do it, all those type of things. And it's funny because you can even go back to like family life and how much support you had as a child, right? Because there are cases where people don't have that, but for some reason they have this grit or resilience to achieve things. But we think that's not as common as you would think. For the most part, most of us need some type of reinforcement from an early age to really be able to handle a lot of these things. And the truth is we're seeing that now, we're knowing that now that a lot of us didn't get it. And it leads to a lot of stuff, especially as we're aging and trying to conceptualize our society around us and the people we connect with.
Yeah, one of the sayings that we have is if you didn't get it then, you can get it now. Meaning our brains allow us to change and shift and look at things differently. So if you had that childhood where you weren't supported, you didn't have the things that you need, you didn't get the attachment that you needed with that caregiver, all those different things, you had adversity in childhood, and those have caused you to feel like you can't accomplish things or that the world's against you or all those kinds of feelings. First of all, I love that you say this is normal. Most of us are not born with this incredible resilience, but most of us need those foundations. And that's what those are our 6 building blocks of resilience. You need protection, you need relationships, you need coping skills, you need to feel that flow, that sense of confidence in yourself, be able to set intentions, belonging, and need to be able to talk about the things that have happened to you, tell your stories.
Yes, 100%.
Those are the things that keep us going, and it's okay to need those things. And actually, what we're trying to do is tell people, you have the right to those things, and you didn't get them, and that's not fair, and that's not right. But now, as a growing adult or a young person who's growing up, you could start to put those things into your life yourself.
I think 100%. And I think I'm learning to do that for myself personally. I have issues with like self-isolation, and because growing up, if I had a problem, I had to get some time and space to figure out what's going on and fix it. I'm doing this from the time I'm 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, you know what I'm saying? And so as an adult, that's what I gravitate towards too. Being connected to certain people, it's not necessarily the greatest thing to consistently do that. Because it can give you more problems on the back end. As an adult, if you self-isolate a lot, you're going to lose those connections you had, right? Especially if you're doing it consistently. As you get older, making those peer-to-peer connections get harder for a lot of different reasons. It's just like you said, being able to tell yourself, okay, I didn't get this when I was young, but I deserve it and I will get it now. But it sucks to say, and that's the one thing I've learned. You have to get to a point where you're a decent enough self-advocate to at least get yourself started there. And then once you start to build that support, you're getting these resources, then it starts to flow naturally. But it's that is, I would say, one of the hardest things, even for a young person, adult, elderly. How do you get to that point where you say, all right, I want to address these things that I've been dealing with for so long? Because I know I've seen people who have an idea that they have some stuff they need to deal with, but what do you do? How do you start? Where do you go?
One really big insight for me was talking with our mutual friend, Dr. Jamie Candelaria Green, and she actually did a podcast with us about meditation. And I'm not like a discipline. I'm going to sit there and go om. And I just started just like a minute, 2 minutes, just getting quiet, just breathing. And what I started to realize was that I had a part of me that could look at the whole me, that there was like, there could be a part of me that's thinking about what's going to happen tomorrow and getting mad about this or getting sad about that. And there was a part of me that was just standing back observing, oh, look, you're mad. Look, you're sad. And that's that part that you need to find in yourself that then says, you know what you need, right? Just exactly what you're talking about. You know what you need right now is you need to stop self-isolating and you need to go and find someone to talk to. And that comes from spending that quality time with yourself to just stop everything, take some breaths, allow that inner person that is in charge of everything to come out and say, with loving kindness, here's what you need. And let's go find it for you.
Yeah, now that is so true. And I think the one thing that we don't take into account is how, like the experience that you just talked about and being able to step back, reflect, observe yourself from within. These are things that we are all able to do, but we think, I remember when when someone first told me about meditating, it was like, I remember I said, oh, I don't know if I could do that. My brain's always racing. And the first thing they said, oh yeah, everyone says that. I was like, really? And honestly, that made me realize that I should just give it a try, because I'm just coming up with reasons why I can't do it because I don't really fully understand what's going on. And then the more you start to do these things, you start to explore again that we're common, these things that we experience in certain ways of going about addressing it, it can help. I also think that we have an issue with having that type of connection with yourself, because it can almost lend the spirituality, religion aspect of life. And some people are disassociated from that. Yeah. And I have had to learn that, yes, those things are synonymous, because I'm not a religious person, I'm not a spiritual person, but I really had to learn how to connect with myself and understand myself and go within myself, understand these different perspectives in my head. Because like you said, I have those different kind of lenses, that one who can sit back and see everything. I have one that's angry and mean and who's ready to react. I have one who's a kid who just wants to play and have fun and tell jokes. If I have the serious, I got to get this work in and do what I got to do. I got to be great. And the work I've been doing is been getting those parts to work together. Mm-hmm. And it is doable. You think it's like this kind of mystical magic. No, it's just connecting with yourself and understanding who you are and what you have going on and being honest about that.
The universe inside you, the God in you, the person in you, whatever it is, just starts to reveal itself.
It is so true. And to add on to that, breathing, like everyone always, the deep breaths. Again, I even before I was like, oh, it's just breathing. But that is one of the few ways to get connected to that autonomic nervous system, to really help with that, regulate those feelings. There are times when something happen and I can feel my body tense up, like it's go time. Then I'm just like, chill, breathe, get in my head, what's going on? Why are you feeling like this? Is this a situation where you need to get tense to protect yourself, or is it not? And you're just kind of, reacting. And it happens really faster than you think, It's like that. Then all of a sudden it's like, oh, okay, this is a safe space. I can calm down. Let me go about my day.
Can you describe what it might feel like when you have been able to dial yourself down and feel in your body, and what you look for, like your patients too, that to help them understand, okay, this is the state you want to feel like, because if you're always nervous, you're always up there.
I think one thing I learned, and it does take practice, is just, it can be at any point in time, is just stopping and literally thinking about how your body is feeling. You know what I'm saying? Right now, I can say my shoulders feel a little tight up here. That's where I carry a lot of stress. So sometimes if I'm feeling amped up, I'm coming like this. And if I need to check myself, I'm like, I'll take a deep breath and I'll just be like, relax. And I'm just feeling my body. And the goal with that is to like not feel tension, because I think that's associated with being in that hypervigilant state of like ready to go, guarded, on just taking that deep breath. Says, do I feel tense? Weird. Some people might clench their fist. One time I went on hang gliding, and it had the guy who was staring hang gliding. I was holding on to him, and he's like, dude, can't breathe, you're choking me. I was like, oh. And I was just a little anxious being up in the sky. I didn't even realize. And I was like, oh, I need to relax. Stopping, asking yourself, what am I feeling? And pointing it out. If it's like I feel tense in my shoulders, like, all right, let me shut it off. So your shoulders start to drop, and you breathe in more. I'm like, where else do I feel it? My legs are tight. Oh, maybe I just need to sit down and relax a little bit. And just getting real, internal. Just being able to really sense what you're feeling, and even what you're hearing, what you're smelling, and just really tapping into more of those primitive senses of what's going on with you. For me, that really brings me down and makes me aware of what's going on with you right now.
One thing that you mentioned early on when we first started talking was about intention. Can you talk a little bit more about how do you set intentions? What I see is people set intentions, and sometimes they're low intentions, and maybe that's a good thing because they're intentions that you can reach easier, and then you build up on that. I don't know. Just what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, what you just said, honestly, if you're kind of like, if this is something you're just beginning, like those intentions should be small and achievable. You need to set yourself up for success, right? So like, say like, you know what, I'm not feeling good. I feel like majority of the time, 5 days out the week is just a hard time for me. Let me see if I can meditate. A lot of people might say, I need to go do yoga. I need to go buy all these things. Just it can be 10, 15, 20 seconds. Close your eyes, whatever, set a timer. When I started trying to meditate, I'd set a timer. Couple of seconds that I got to, and then just give it a shot. And I'll start by telling myself, a couple of weeks, I just need to do it once a week. You know what I'm saying? And then once that gets consistent, let me try some other things. I think this is helping. Again, and even starting to build those intentions, it has to start from a place of awareness of acknowledging like you want something different or something needs to change. That could be like, if you're angry, I want to try to be less angry. But if you're angry and you find yourself lashing out at people, I want to lash out at people less.
Yeah. Yeah, we interviewed for one of our other podcasts a music producer named Lil Reese. And, yeah,
he works in Chicago?
No, he's from the Bay Area. He's from the Ventura Hill neighborhood where we started out in, and he does beats for Brett Faiyaz. And anyway, he was a really good podcast about how he tells stories through his music. But one thing that was really interesting was that he's made it really big. He's where you want to dream to be. If you start out like you're in your bedroom, and I like listening to music, and then I realized I like making beats, and then I really like. But what he did was he set up these like small steps that got him from, okay, first I'm going to share this music locally, and then I'm going to put it on YouTube, and then I'm going to do this, and then I'm going to talk to this person. Like you said, that the setting these intentions that will lead you to success. Because if you go from, I like music and I want to be a music star, and that's my intention, all the way down the line, 20 years from now or something, along the way, you're going to get 50 million people and situations that are going to tell you it's never going to happen. All you need to do is just say, I'm going to take a class, or I'm going to just stick with that class. Like you said, once a week, I'm going to do this thing.
Yep.
And that builds your confidence too, because every time you do that and you're like, okay, I accomplished that. And your brain goes, I'm going to send you some really good, feel good, you get some dopamine in there saying, you did that. That's a good thing. And then your brain wants to go, do it again. Yeah. And you want to set it.
Yeah. It's so funny. And then you get to a point, honestly, like you get to a point, I've handled something similar before. I could do this. I know for me, I end up doing a lot of things that I probably, in the sense of like, am I really prepared to do this? Not really. But because I like trying new things, you meet new people, and then all of a sudden, and then it's like, all right, how am I going to actually do this? And then I start by saying, listen, you've done it before, you can do it again. Honestly, once you learn how to do that, it can send you off in different paths where you can apply the same formula.
It works. And then if you don't make that thing, that's okay. You say, I didn't make it. I set that intention. I didn't make it, or I set that goal. That's all right. I'm going to set another one. And maybe I have to do it halfway this time or something.
Yeah. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to mess up in doing this work and trying to address your mental health and set good intentions. Things aren't always going to go right. And that's a tough kind of situation. Just beginning to try to work out on this stuff, you're probably at a point where you feel like nothing ever goes right. It's not easy. It can be easier than you set up for yourself in your head, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
It won't be as bad as you think it is.
Yeah, and you know what makes it easier? If you do something that everybody talks about, but they don't really talk about how you do it, and that is you care about yourself. You love yourself. You love yourself enough to say, I'm going to forgive myself for making that thing happen. I'm going to set a goal that I can reach so I can have something for success. I'm going to set myself up for success. All of that are expressions of self-love. You're not like, self-love isn't like, I just think I'm the greatest person. That's narcissism, right? Self-love is just, I'm going to do things that are going to give me a sense of accomplishment for myself.
One thing that I struggle with is like the negative self-talk. So playing sports is do better. As you're playing, you suck, or you know what I'm saying? Like, duh, you better, that negative reinforcement thing. So like I internalized that when I was going through it. It's still learning and practicing to be more positive with myself. You'll get it next time. Just keep working, just keep trying, things like that. And I have to be intentional about that. Because if I get into a certain space and certain things, it's back to being, you're not good enough. I benefit more from positive feedback, being gentle with myself, giving myself grace, and coming back. And then if I didn't get it the first time, I'm going to get it the second time. If I don't get it the second time, I get it the third time. And I will keep going until I get it, because why not? So shifting to that mindset has been helpful, and it's still practice.
you got to practice it, right? One thing I have done in my life before is, and actually I have a little thing here. It says little B. If you can see, I just found it in some store in LA and it was like $5. But it's a little thing to just remind me to be supportive for myself. Before I've worn like bracelets and things just to remind me, okay, don't talk shit to yourself. Things like that. Just, you have to do that because like the world swirls around you and you can get lost in it and you have to have something that kind of brings you back in.
This was the most famous saying I have heard. Don't get lost in the sauce. Do not, it's just like you said, everything going on and you're trying to find your way and you're like, I think I should be doing this. Society says this, but I feel this, all these different things.
The way that I got to know you was from reading academic paper that you wrote about something called societal pain. And I'm wondering if you could talk about that because I found it really moving and I found it was a great kind of big picture view of what we're experiencing on this planet.
And remember when I talked about agreeing to do something ahead of time and not sure? That was the perfect example, but it really gave me an opportunity to explore my experiences, the social justice movement, especially the murder of George Floyd. You have the January 6th event, all these things swirling around, and it put me in a place to really think about who I am next to this society that I'm living in compared to the things I want to do and my personal experiences. And it got me to a point to realize, like, when I see these negative things, like in social media, on TV, it got to a point where you see Black men on TV getting killed by the police. People are debating, oh, he deserved to die, and oh, he didn't. But you hear people talking about it like it's super casual. And I'm just sitting here like every time, be me. It's not a debate for me, you know what I'm saying? So like all these things, and I started to really think about how I was feeling and back pain, stomach's feeling all crazy. I had a history of like knee surgery, knees all achy. The physical things I were doing weren't really changing, but like these external stressors were starting to increase. And it was like, so I started to look in, I'm a physical therapist by trade, so I know about dealing with chronic pain. And so I started doing some investigating, and you learn about the biopsychosocial aspect of pain. So the biological, psychological, and the social aspect. So biological is the physiological processes that happen when you experience pain, right? You bang your finger in a door, it sends a signal to your brain, it starts burning to let you know you had an injury, and you do something about it. Psychological, it's like the cognitions that happen, like, oh, I have my finger, I'm stressed out, can I still work? Maybe if your specialty is using your hand, right? We know that the neural pathways from these psychosocial aspects of pain and like the pain, the common aspect of pain, that physiological, biological response, they use similar neural pathways, psychological or social pain. Physiologically, the same things are happening if you bang your hand in that door. Not to the extent where you bang your hand, your finger's hurting, but you have more of this kind of generalized pain. You might have some stomach issues that you don't know where it came from. We call that insidious in nature because it just arose. All of a sudden, maybe you had some back stuff going on. All of a sudden, every time you wake up, I just can't do it. Again, like for me, when you're seeing Black men being killed by the police on social media and TV 24/7, I'm sure being a woman and seeing certain things on TV, and you're like, this again, these historical events that never get addressed, but they're constantly being pushed in your face. It questions your perceived worth. So it's these people really are not thinking or don't care about me. But in the context of my community, my society, my government, and how can I flourish as a Black man, Black woman, person of color, person with a disability, someone who's not Christian, someone who's from a lower socioeconomic status? How can I do the things I want to do? How can I live my most authentic life if I'm being killed, marginalized, being seen as only an object? And that hurts, and that can produce physical pain. What it also led me to do is reflect on my experience within that, and I talked about my experience playing football. I obtained a PhD from a school in the Pacific Northwest. I got to reflect on my experiences and how that made me feel. Instances where it was like that I couldn't move the same. My stomach issues are like running crazy. I was able to get to a point of how I addressed it. And that came from, we talked about in the paper, being able to get to a safe space, on being able to reflect and being able to think about, I may not be able to change the societal perspective, but I can put myself in spaces where I don't feel that same societal angst. If I'm in community with other Black men, I'm not sitting here thinking about the police shooting us, because we're talking about things we have in common, all these are, and it's not so much. We may talk about that, but having that support of people who feel similarly and have similar experiences help reduce those effects.
How do you trust other people enough to know that you can open yourself up to them and feel safe and feel protected and find those kind of connected relationships that we need?
You're going to get it wrong. Because I think for me, when I think about it, is like I've tried to make a ton of connections with various types of people for various different reasons. And I would say a lot of times nothing came up of it. But when it did happen, it was amazing. You think that as you get older, it gets easier to handle just by being yourself or keeping a positive attitude. But you learn it's not that simple. When you're young, people tell you that. So you get all this internal conflict of like, why am I not happy? You're angry that you're angry. You're sad that you're sad. You're sad because you're angry. And you get this kind of cyclical action with all these negative emotions. I think one thing that's been hard for me is figuring out, what do I do about it? Sometimes it's hard to know who you can go to. We have family, we have friends, but sometimes even they don't know that you don't feel comfortable coming to them with this stuff. And that's even more isolating. It's always good to start with saying, if I'm not feeling good, I need help. And being honest with yourself and being honest with the people around you.
We always like to end our interviews by asking this one question: who made a difference for you when you were growing up?
When I was younger, I couldn't ask for help because there was no one to give it. Mom was working, no dad, siblings doing whatever they got to do. It's up to you to figure it out. I was fortunate enough to have people, not a lot of times, but a few times, people just saw something and then was like, hey, Winston, come on. So you get those little windows of opportunities for support. It's not necessarily easy to get that. But I would say, again, it starts by saying, I need help, I want help, and it's going to be up and down with the type of help you receive, but you have to keep going. I think one thing I had to do was make a commitment to, like, no matter how bad I feel, no matter how bad it gets, I want to lead a life that's low stress. I can have good times and I can have good friends. And then just saying that to yourself, honestly, you start to implicitly, it starts to happen because you give yourself that charge. And when you internalize that kind of thinking, even when it gets extremely negative, you find a way to push through. It can't start without admitting something's going on and you need help.
Thank you for listening. This is the Bounce Back Generation podcast. Thank you to our guest, Dr. Winston Kennedy. Our producer is Liam Donaldson. Music by Jogging Turtle. You won't want to miss our upcoming podcasts, where we talk to a music producer and artist about using art to talk about your life story. We'll explore death, dying, and grief, starting our own mindfulness practice, and what it's like to grow up as a foster child. If you would like to learn more about us, visit our website at bouncebackgeneration.org or our media site at bbgtv.org. You can follow us on Instagram at bouncebackgeneration and TikTok at bouncebackgen. If you have a story you would like to share about your own journey to emotional resilience, please contact us at info@bouncebackgeneration.org or call and leave a message at 415-570-8765. If you like what you're hearing and believe in our mission to support youth mental health and resilience, please consider making a donation at bouncebackgeneration.org/donate.